Hello and welcome back to 𝗤𝗺 Historical Files, the channel where you can find a wealth of intriguing historical photos and facts about our ancient past. Let's get started. Claraa Randall was a notorious 19th century criminal known for her elaborate identity theft schemes and deceptions. She frequently assumed false identities, posing as wealthy or high-status individuals to defraud her victims of money, property and valuables. Her most significant crime involved claiming the inheritance of deceased women by forging documents and creating convincing backstories. Randall's activities eventually led to her arrest and a highly publicized trial that exposed her manipulative tactics. In 1974, Patty Hurst, a wealthy heiress, was seized by the Symbionese Liberation Army, a radical leftist group. The SLA forcibly took the 19-year-old from her apartment in Berkeley, California, and while in their custody, Hurst quickly declared her support for the SLA, took part in a bank heist, and assumed the alias Tanya. By the time she was apprehended in September 1975, she described herself as an urban guerrilla. Her defense during the trial contended that she had been subjected to brainwashing and abuse. Consequently, her sentence was commuted by President Jimmy Carter in 1979, and she was later granted a pardon by President Bill Clinton. Goldie Williams was an American criminal active in the late 19th century. She was involved in various illegal activities, including theft and fraud, primarily in the western United States. Known for her clever schemes and ability to evade capture for a long time, Williams eventually was apprehended and tried, though detailed records of her life and crimes are sparse. In this photo, you can see her making a face after her arrest for vagrancy in Omaha, Nebraska in 1898. The 5-foot-tall, 110-pound Williams reported her hometown as Chicago and her occupation as a prostitute. Laura Belle Devlin was a notorious American criminal from the late 19th century, known for her involvement in high-profile thefts and fraud schemes. Devlin had murdered her husband, dismembered his body with a hacksaw, and disposed of the remains in their wood stove and backyard. Despite the severity of her actions, she appeared to be unaware of any wrongdoing and even asked the arresting police officers, "Can I go home now?" In this photo, we can see her being arrested in New York, Ohio in 1947. Bonnie Parker was a notorious American criminal and half of the infamous duo Bonnie and Clyde. Born on October 1, 1910 in Rowena, Texas, Parker became infamous during the Great Depression for her partnership with Clyde Barrow. Together, they led a gang that committed a series of robberies, primarily targeting banks across the central United States. Their criminal activities included theft, kidnapping and murder, capturing the public's imagination and making headlines nationwide. B Gunnis, born in Norway in 1859, became one of America's most infamous female serial killers after immigrating to the US in 1881. Settling on a farm in LaPorte, Indiana, she lured men with marriage promises, murdered them, and collected their insurance policies and assets. Her criminal activities only came to light in 1908 when a fire at her farmhouse revealed numerous bodies buried on the property, including her children and a headless woman believed to be Belle herself. Her true fate remains uncertain, with theories suggesting she faked her death. In 1910, Maud Johnson faced trial for defrauding railroads from 1907 to 1909 by faking injuries across multiple cities. Judge A.L. Miller detailed her deceptive tactics, including feigning injuries on a train to Yakult to extort money. Despite her defense claiming poverty and arguing her injuries were real, she was convicted and sentenced to 5 years in Walla Walla prison. After securing conditional parole in 1913, Johnson vanished from public view. Stephanie Sinclair, born on December 24, 1897 in Martinique and known as Queenie, was a prominent criminal figure in early 20th century New York City. Settling in Harlem, she became a major player in the illegal numbers racket, exerting significant influence and operating her own numbers operation. Sinclair, known for her strong personality and leadership, navigated organized crime and legal challenges while also supporting her community. Sinclair passed away on December 15, 1969, leaving behind a notable legacy as a pioneering woman in organized crime. In 1923, Ellen Nellie Creger was one of 4 individuals charged with the murder of Gertrude Mabel Hayden in Sydney, Australia. The case was notable for its complexity, involving Creger, Arthur Thomas, Charles Edward King and Agnes Mabel McCormack. The trial garnered significant media attention due to the sensational nature of the crime and the multiple suspects involved. The proceedings examined the motives and evidence surrounding the murder, marking a significant event in early 20th century Australian criminal history. Belle Starr, born Myra Maybelle Shirley on February 5, 1848 in Missouri, was a notorious figure in American outlaw history known as the Bandit Queen. In the 1870s and 1890s, she became infamous for her involvement in criminal activities such as theft and cattle rustling, often associated with outlaw gangs and her criminally inclined husbands. Despite frequent run-ins with the law, Starr managed to avoid significant legal repercussions until her murder on February 3, 1889 in Oklahoma Territory, just 2 days before her 41st birthday. Her life has been romanticized in folklore and popular media, cementing her legacy as a prominent female outlaw of the American frontier. Blanche Barrow, born May 20, 1909, was the sister-in-law of Clyde Barrow and a member of the Barrow Gang. Married to Clyde's brother Buck, she participated in the gang's criminal activities until their capture in 1933. After Buck's death and her arrest, Blanche was sentenced to 10 years in prison but served about 5. She later lived a quieter life and died on December 24, 1988. Her story remains part of the Barrow Gang's legacy. Hazel McKinnon, a notable Australian criminal from the early 20th century, gained infamy for her involvement in a series of high-profile thefts and bank robberies, including the Brisbane bank robbery in 1922. Her criminal activities led to her arrest and conviction, drawing significant media attention. McGuinness's actions and subsequent trial marked her as a prominent figure in Australian criminal history, illustrating the era's challenges with organised crime. Christine and Leah Papin, French domestic servants, became infamous for the brutal murder of their employers, the Lancelot family in Le Mans, France, on February 2, 1933. The sisters used a hammer and knife in a violent attack that shocked the public due to its extreme brutality. Their trial was widely publicised, with a focus on their psychological state and the harsh conditions they endured. Christine was sentenced to death, later commuted to life imprisonment, and died in prison in 1937, while Leah was sentenced to 20 years but was released after 16. Brenda Ann Spencer, born April 30, 1962 in San Diego, California, gained notoriety for a school shooting on January 29, 1979 at Grover Cleveland Elementary School. At 16, Spencer opened fire from her home, killing 2 school employees and injuring 8 others. Her lack of remorse, exemplified by her remark that she didn't like Mondays and did it for the fun, drew significant media attention. Convicted of multiple charges, she was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Valerie Low, an Australian criminal from the early 1900s, gained notoriety for her involvement in a series of audacious thefts. In 1922, she was arrested for breaking into an army warehouse and stealing boots and overcoats alongside her partner in crime, Joseph Messenger. They were also charged with breaking into a home, stealing a saddle and bridle from Rosebery Racecourse, and taking jewellery and money. Known for her significant criminal activities, including theft and fraud, Low was implicated in high-profile cases that drew considerable media attention. Dolly Osterreich, an American woman from the early 20th century, gained infamy for a dramatic and scandalous crime. In the 1920s, she hid her lover, Otto Sandhuber, in the attic of her Milwaukee home to keep their affair secret from her husband, Fred Osterreich. When Fred discovered the affair and threatened to expose them, Dolly and Sandhuber conspired to murder him. Fred was killed in 1927, and the crime was uncovered when police found Sandhuber living in the attic. Dolly was convicted of manslaughter in 1928, and her case, marked by its sensational details and the unusual circumstances of the hidden lover, became a notable example of early 20th century crime. Carol Ann Fugate, at just 14, became the youngest female ever tried for first-degree murder in the United States due to her involvement in a gruesome killing spree with her 19-year-old boyfriend, Charles Starkweather, in 1958. Over several days, they murdered 11 people, including Fugate's own family members, during a series of robberies and killings across Nebraska and Wyoming. Fugate was arrested and convicted, receiving a life sentence in 1958, while Starkweather was executed in 1959. Fugate spent nearly 17 years in prison before being paroled in 1976. Alice Fischer, an Australian criminal from the early 1900s, gained notoriety for a series of high-profile thefts in 1908. Known for her audacious crimes, she was involved in breaking into homes and stealing valuable items, including jewellery and money. Her arrest and subsequent conviction attracted significant media attention, reflecting the public's fascination with crime during that period. Martha Jane Canary, known as Calamity Jane, was a famed American frontierswoman born in 1852 in Missouri. Renowned for her adventures and often exaggerated claims, she earned her nickname through her reputed skills as a sharpshooter and her roles as a scout, stagecoach driver, and nurse during the Indian Wars and generally in frontier life. Her colourful personality and self-styled heroism contributed to her legendary status, though her life was marked by both genuine frontier experiences and embellished tales. Calamity Jane died in 1903 in Deadwood, South Dakota, and was buried next to Wild Bill Hickok. Mary Flora Bell, born in 1957, was one of the youngest female killers in modern history, known for committing 2 murders at the age of 10. In 1968, she strangled 4-year-old Martin Brown and 3-year-old Brian Howe in Newcastle, England. Her crimes, marked by sadism and violence, led to her arrest and trial, where she was found guilty of manslaughter due to her age and psychological state. Sentenced to life in prison, she was released on parole in 1980 after serving 12 years, with her identity kept secret for protection. Nanny DOSS, dubbed the Giggling Granny, was an American serial killer born in 1905, known for murdering at least 11 people, including multiple husbands and family members, through poisoning. Motivated by financial gain and personal grievances, Doss's unsettling ability to mask her violent actions with a pleasant facade captivated and disturbed those who followed her case. Arrested in 1954, she was sentenced to life in prison and died in 1965. Pearl Hart, born in 1871 in Canada, became a notable Wild West outlaw with a dramatic criminal career. In 1899, she and her accomplice, a man who called himself Joe Boot, famously robbed a stagecoach in Arizona. During the robbery, when one of the victims resisted, Hart, disguised as a man, deepened her voice and threatened, "Cough up, partner, or I'll plug you." Her involvement in this heist drew significant attention due to her gender and the audacity of the crime. Captured shortly after, Hart was sentenced to 5 years in prison and was released in 1902. Cheryl Crane, born on July 25, 1943, is the daughter of the famous actress Lana Turner. She gained significant public attention in 1958 at the age of 14 when she fatally stabbed her mother's abusive boyfriend, Johnny Stompanato, during a violent confrontation at their home. After the incident, Crane chose a private life away from the limelight, later writing a memoir titled Detour, a Hollywood tragedy, which recounts her tumultuous experiences growing up in the public eye and the dramatic events surrounding Stompanato's death. Martha Beck, born May 6, 1920, was one half of the notorious Lonely Hearts Killers, a murderous duo she formed with Raymond Fernandez. The pair targeted vulnerable women seeking companionship through personal ads, luring them into their trap to rob and murder them. Their crimes, which occurred between 1947 and 1949, were marked by brutality and manipulation. Captured in 1949, Beck was tried and convicted, receiving a death sentence. She was executed in the gas chamber at San Quentin State Prison on March 8, 1951. Annie Oakley, born Phoebe Ann Moses on August 13, 1860, was a celebrated sharpshooter who gained fame with Buffalo Bill Cody's Wild West show. Although never arrested, she faced a false scandal in 1903 when Chicago papers mistakenly reported she was jailed for stealing men's pants to fund a cocaine addiction, a crime actually committed by a burlesque dancer using her name. Oakley successfully sued over 50 papers for this defamation. Known for her remarkable shooting skills and advocacy for women's rights, she remained a cultural icon until her death on November 3, 1926. Rosemary West, born April 8, 1953, is a notorious English serial killer known for her gruesome crimes alongside her husband, Fred West. Their criminal activities, spanning the 1970s and 1980s, involved the rape, torture and murder of young women, girls, and even their own children. The Wests' crimes were exposed in 1994 when police discovered a hidden cellar at their Gloucester home containing the remains of several victims. While Fred West committed suicide in prison in 1995, Rosemary was convicted of 10 murders and sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. Myra Hindley, born July 23, 1942, is infamous for her role in the Mears murders alongside Ian Brady. Active between 1963 and 1965, the couple lured and murdered children and teenagers, burying their bodies on the Mears near Saddleworth. Hindley was arrested in 1965, convicted of 5 murders, and sentenced to life imprisonment. Her perceived lack of remorse and the brutal nature of the crimes led to her being dubbed the most evil woman in Britain. Despite repeated attempts to secure parole, Hindley remained in prison until her death on November 15, 2002. And with that, we wrap up today's video. What did you think? Did you find it interesting? Let us know in the comments what you felt and thought while watching the video. We'll see you next time.